Today I'm going to take you through a quick little tutorial that is a calisthenics body weight and hand balancing. This is called a crock. I'm going to take you through a few basic steps to get you started, and then from there you can start to build to other hand balancing activities. So we're going to go through working on the crock on a set of canes. I'm also going to show you how to work on it on the floor, but I found for a lot of people, it's harder for them to find the lift and the balance on the floor, and it's easier for them to find it on a set of canes, okay? So if you don't have a set of canes, definitely try this out on the floor and or get a set. This particular set is a nice base model to start with. These are from Beyond Balance. You can get whatever height you want, but this is a good basic height. Okay, so just to start, before we get into the crock part, positioning if you are using canes is you're going to have two fingers on the ends. Okay, so if you looked at it from the side, my fingers just hang over at the knuckle there. Okay, so two fingers on the front, the other fingers are wrapping around. Okay, so for this one, everyone's body lengths and relationships of lengths to each other is different. Some people have longer arms, longer torso, shorter arms, shorter torso. So this positioning on this part is going to vary quite a bit from person to person. Placement of your elbow for the crock. I want to think about placing it somewhere between my belly button and my hip. For me personally, I prefer it closer to my hip. Okay, ladies, if you have a little more endowment in the boob area, you're going to have to really work to scoop the girls to the side. Okay, or guys have them too. So for this one, I want to try and place my elbow as close to my hip. I'm going to start with my hands on the canes, and then I'm going to walk my body over so I'm perpendicular to my hands. Okay, this part of my forearm, I want to make sure that this remains vertical the entire time. If you start to bend this way, you're not going to find your stack. Plus, it's going to be really hard on that wrist. Okay, so as you lower down, think about keeping this forearm vertical and the elbow bends, lowering your torso to your elbow instead of bringing your elbow to your body. Okay, so I'm going to take my legs out in a wide V, or depending on how tall you are, you can start from knees, whatever works better for you. But think about lowering yourself onto your elbow. Okay, like I said, knees can be bent, straight. Don't worry about how pretty it looks in the beginning. Okay, so bulk of my weight is on the hand that's closest. This is kind of my accessory hand. Eventually this hand will come off completely, but don't worry about that for today. Let's start with two hands. Okay, so I'm going to start to bend this arm and lower my hip to that arm. You can see how my forearm is still very vertical. I'm going to drop my head down a little bit towards the other arm, squeezing my butt. Legs are in a V, and I'm going to work on raising the legs. When the legs start to raise up to horizontal above, then start to raise your head to meet. Okay, so easier to raise your legs if they're in a V versus legs together. But those of you that are super flexy and easy to do splits, I would recommend keeping your V like 90-ish to start, because sometimes if you go too wide of a big old spready to the gods, it actually throws you off. Okay, so think about 90-ish, doesn't have to be exact, and that's going to be easier to lift. Also, try to raise both legs at the same time. Okay, think of the movement of it. If I was laying on the floor, I'm trying to do this with my legs. Okay, so this is actually kind of a good warm-up exercise to get those butt cheeks, glutes triggering. Okay, that's the motion. So initially, it's your glutes firing to raise both those legs. Once you start to get that tip, then it's your rector spinae back muscles to work on lifting your upper torso. Okay, so basically we're trying to find that pivot point, tip into it, and then lift everything together. Okay, so when I tip into it now, I don't drop my head a whole lot. I don't have to because I've found the muscle coordination. But for some of you that are working on this, and this is new to you, the more you drop your head down, the easier it is to lift your feet initially, which is part of the reason why it's easier to start with this on the canes versus on the floor. So let's look at what that might look like for you. Okay, so I'm going to bring my torso in to meet my elbow, placing it close to my hip. I'm going to drop my head way down. So see, I'm kind of like a teepee, tent, raise my legs up, oops, kicking the wall, and then raise the head up. Okay, so eventually your goal is to just tip right into it. But in the beginning, sometimes we have to find where our center of gravity is, and your center of gravity is going to be different for everyone. I have a very long torso. My center of gravity might be in a different place than someone who's maybe shorter. Plus, I'm a little more on the top heavy side versus lower torso heavy side. So depending on your weight distribution, your pivot point is going to be different for everyone. So you have to play around with this. Couple of things. The placement of the elbow in the beginning sometimes not super comfortable. So sometimes I get people asking me, I feel like I'm impaling my guts. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Play around with positioning. Try to find the most comfortable area. That's why for me, I find putting it just barely inside of my hip versus like closer up to my internal organs feels slightly more comfortable. Okay. So positioning is going to help. Wrists. This is another thing, is making sure that arm is vertical will be easier on your wrists. If we're doing this on the ground, let's look at what that would look like real quick. Hand placement can be exactly the same as if I was using canes, or because I'm not placing my fingers in the cane, you can turn this hand out if you want to, and it can be farther out, okay? Once again, experiment with what feels best for you. I'm gonna take my legs out like I'm going to like a froggy stretch. Same as I did on the canes, I wanna lower to my elbow instead of bringing my elbow to my side, okay? So drop down onto it, keeping that form relatively vertical. Drop your torso down, legs go out into that V, legs raise, and then up, okay? Squishy floor does not make it easy, okay? So definitely try it on the floor as well. If you don't have canes and you're struggling to find it on the floor, try putting your hands maybe on a set of yoga blocks, just having your hands up and having a little bit more distance between where your arm is and your feet location, foot location height is, sometimes makes it a little bit easier. So play around with that as well. Okay, so let's go real quick steps of what you're going to go through on this one. Whether you're using canes or on the floor, hand placement, 2 fingers, walk your body around so it's perpendicular. Okay, my fingers are pointing this way, my body's facing this way. Bring your hip to meet your elbow. So lower down onto the elbow, making sure that forearm is nice and vertical. Legs out into a V. Try to raise both legs same time, and then lifting the head. Okay, so that is a quick little introduction into a hand balancing crock. Try it out. If you have questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. If you have requests for other future tutorials, I'd love to hear those as well. Leave those in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.